Hey y'all, we about to get a little controversial here because what I'm going to talk to y'all about, a lot of people don't want to come to these concepts, and I'm going to be able to reference everything we're going to discuss today. So if anybody wants to find me at fault, please research what I'm speaking about yourself so you know for yourself, under your own interpretation, what is true or not. Now, everything I'm going to speak to you are going to go from not just scientific, but also from philosophical, religious, and every other aspect to bring together what our different DNA structure has within ourselves from what we have done with being able to mix with different people. This has nothing to do with a racial subject. We need to get off this race thing because they got us believing that our people are only a people of whatever country you're from. No, your people came from whatever bloodline, from whatever family you started off from first. Then, as it grew, you grew as a nation within your family. We're going to start off with different scientific factors. Now, science has found remains from different species of humanoids. But they tried to depict these humanoids at different eras of time. And then all that was disproven when they found remains of certain humanoids during the same time. One humanoid that is very known is what we call the Neanderthal. And when we think of the Neanderthal, we think of them to be a being more of a primitive nature. We mistake this primitive nature because their extinction within their brain is at a higher level than the Homo sapien. A Homo sapien, I'm sorry, Homo erectus. Correct that. The Homo erectus is a being who has a larger side of their brain that is more of a logical, it deals with more of numbers and computing and whatever is logical. It can break down things in another perspective. But the Neanderthal brain is more instinctive and more connected to their inner brainstem. But these people were people. They had a language. They spoke to each other. They had a family structure. They had their own society with them in themselves. They weren't the great master builders that were the Homo erectus. But the Homo erectus story goes into how they learned how to be master builders. These people had a writing system. They call them cave drawings or whatever. But they had a writing system. So therefore they communicated, had stories and things like that. So this is an intellectual level of a being. These beings wore clothing. So they had a nature within themselves to provide their bodies with something to cover themselves. Then you have the genetic structure and the location where they found these remains and the time period they found these remains. They found the remains very close in the same area as the Homo erectus. So these were in comparison by how low in the earth in this area could you timeline when these two beings cross this area. Thing is, they found them to be in the same time era. Big question, did Homo sapien, Neanderthal, get wiped out? Common sense tells you Homo erectus, Homo sapien, the humanoids, sexuality is just as animalistic as any other creature. And you can see that by the examples of how we treat sexuality today. We don't treat sexuality as a rarity of a high stature and things that I will talk further to you in other clips about how deep sexuality is. But we treat it on an animal level where we're feeding into instinctively our what we are attracted to and not logically separating why we are attracted to this and what are the situations we are putting ourselves in by being sexually bound to a person. But that right there, as I said, is another topic. So we do practice today bestiality and other forms of sexual practices that if other animals had the genetic structure to be able to combine with our genetics, imagine what we would have created if that was possible. So to say that we did not sleep around with other humanoid beings is just a ridiculous thought within itself. Now, with Homo erectus, Homo sapien in the same area, they found these remains in Ireland. And in Ireland, just think of the people. Homo sapien genetics is red hair, green eyes. They have a thicker bone density, shorter structure. While the Homo erectus did not contain the body hair in their genetic structure, was no need because they were not native to this land. They migrated to this land. So the Homo sapien there that was native to this land body needed this gene to produce this hair, this fur, because the genetic structure of this hair was actually a trait of what is called fur, and its ability to protect the skin. This is to protect the skin. Hair is not needed to protect the skin as fur is needed to protect the skin. Get that? Because why would you need hair under your underarms? What is there to protect? You have hair on your vaginal and on your genital areas. All that does is collect bacteria. It doesn't really prevent anything. It does more harm than it does help when it comes to your chemistry. So, the genetic structure of the Homo sapien has fur, has this hair all over their body. Homo erectus doesn't have this trait. They have hair. Then you have cro-magnon, which is also at the same time area as Homo erectus, Homo sapien. Homo erectus remains are also found within the regions of Africa and Asia. Cro-magnon spread it from Africa is original place where its genetic structure has darker hair. Homo sapien has red hair. Homo erectus has a dark brown color hair, almost black. Homo erectus has a dense bone density too, contrasted to certain beings. And you have to remember that certain beings have to have genetic structure to say they came from this earth, to say they came from this earth, and we'll talk about that too. And this clip is going to go pretty long, so prepare for it. Now, Cro-Magnon was a being that also was able to come up with their own way of life too. As I said, these are people. They have languages. They have things that come into their society and influence their changes. And while they're spreading and migrating, they're migrating to Europe, and they're migrating through the bridges that take Africa all the way to Asia. And they're meeting other humanoids. And they're relating by the things they have in common, just like the Neanderthals did. Now, when we have these already humanoid beings mixing, and they're saying that they have their own stories about influences from beings, they're not used to in their nature. Things that came into their life, had intelligence, had abilities, came down also and mated because their genetic structure allowed them to mate with us. We look at the countries that we came from. People ask me, like, what is my nationality? And I am native. My mother, her mother was a, no, I can't call her a refugee because she didn't run away for political purposes, but for her own purpose, yes, she was a refugee from the country that is now Commonwealth of we call Puerto Rico. But Puerto Rican itself is not actually a people. It became a people after the blending of different people. But the original people of that land that they called the Tainos came from the Mayan civilizations and also from other native lands. Back then, when you had trading, a lot of the islands were main posts for these tradings to be able to post everything and all your ships at one place and have it spread through certain areas. Business is not new. All that is old. So you have these people already that use this particular land, and they're getting introduced to people from the African regions. As I told you that cro-magnon is one humanoid from the African region. You have the pygmies, who are the only, there are one people who originated from the land of Africa who has no trace of cro-magnon, Neanderthal, or anything. Any other people that came from any other region has at least 4% of these humanoids in you. Not to mention all the other DNA you have not decoded. So you have Puerto Ricans that are mixed with already a native from the lands of South America and from the lower region of what America is and Central America and Mexico. And they're introduced by Europeans who are a mixture. Then and you have to look at the people who are homo-sapien and cro-magnon. If you have a person who are more hairy with the fur, but they have dark complexion, you're putting them with another being that has more, more melanin. You're mixing all these things, all these different qualities of these people, and they're migrating. And they migrated through the islands of Sicily. They went through Italy, France, and they managed to end up in the bottom part of Ireland all the way to Spain and Portugal. So this is where a lot of people, they call this Moors. You look at their structure and the people, how they look. People who took over the lands in Egypt, the people who spread it through Sumatra, look at their different physical attributes. Look, that tells you actually the DNA of the humanoid they came from. Now, Puerto Rican is nothing but a mixture of different humanoids. I have native blood, but I also have blood from different humanoids and different introductional beings from the families that have done what they have done within going outside and introducing themselves to other humanoids. Now, the mixing created great things, and then he created false. Who's to say which one was worse? But the whole race thing is a figment of your imagination they gave you. So get off it. It don't exist. I'll continue with this a little further. Love y'all comments. Y'all have a good one.